Good morning. Welcome to Gimpy's History Corner. I'm Gimpy, called that by my two grandsons, the Scream Brothers, Ellis, the tall one, Archie, the shorter one. Here they are with their mother, Sarah, who at Halloween dressed up like Drew Barrymore from a Scream movie. They love Halloween, that's for sure. Now they're getting ready for Christmas. That's probably their favorite holiday. Okay, we're on video number 153. And this one is a time in history called the Satanic Panic. Actually, there's been several satanic panics. The first one came early in our country's history, called the witch trials. The first one started in Connecticut in 1662 when a death of an eight-year-old girl. Her parents blamed witches for her death, and several women were tried and executed. They didn't mess around in those days. Then the big one came in Salem, Massachusetts with the Salem witch trials from 1692 to 93. Over 200 people, mostly women, were accused, 20 executed, mix of religious extremism, local rivalries, and a fear of outsiders. Wow, you've seen TV shows and movies about the Salem witch trials, I'm sure. But it was always women. Why is that? Okay, the one more recent era when we had what was called the Satanic Panic was during the Ronald Reagan presidential administration in the 1980s and 90s. And it was fueled by hidden satanic cults. This would be the 1980s and the 90s. Ritual abuse and occult influence in everyday life. It led to thousands of failed accusations, wrongful convictions, and lasting cultural scars. So my kids were born during this period, so I have some personal experience with satanic panic. I was a school administrator. So I remember parents being worried about Satan's influence on the schools and movies and music. Some of the key origins was a guy named Jack Chick, who was a cartoonist, wrote a cartoon called Dark Dungeons that warned people about Dungeons and Dragons. You remember that game? I guess it's still going on. And a book called Michelle Remember, 1980, a book by Lawrence Pasdar. And a patient named Michelle Smith claimed memories recovered through therapy of satanic ritual abuse. It was later discredited, but it did spread fear. What was happening at this time were psychiatrists started something called some kind of therapy where they put, it was kind of like hypnotic therapy. They would kind of hypnotize their patients and ask them if they ever experienced ritual abuse. And they'd say, yes, this and that happened. It was kind of a new thing. And that's where these memories came from. So also, as you might imagine, televangelists were very popular at the time. TV preachers jumped on the bandwagon. The moral majority, remember them? Religious leaders amplified concerns about Satan infiltrating schools, homes, and pop culture. The top two were Pat Robertson of the 700 Club and Jerry Falwell of the Moral Majority. I think they're both passed away at this time. I don't think either one are still alive. But remember, the televangelists were very popular during this time. And they were convinced that Satan was working. And the media amplification, talk shows, news outlets. Remember, talk shows were very popular. Phil Donahue, Sally Raphael, what was her name? Had 3 names, something Sally Raphael. All these crazy guys where they'd fight on the screen. What was his name? Maury Povich. Crazy. These were daytime shows. Daytime shows, media amplification, talk shows, news outlets, and sensational reporting spread unverified claims, creating a climate of hysteria. Now, there were several key scandals that were in the news a lot at the time. There were the daycare scandals. The Martin preschool case in California became infamous, with teachers accused of bizarre satanic rituals. Despite years of trials, no evidence was ever found that this was true. This was all part of recovered memory therapy. Therapists encouraged patients to recover memories of ritual abuse, often leading to false accusations. And during this time, there were pop culture targets, heavy metal music. Remember the big hair days, where the band members had big frizzy hair, loud, heavy metal music. Horror films and games like Dungeons and Dragons were accused of promoting Satanism and suicide. The legal fallout: over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of ritual abuse were reported. Many innocent people faced trials, imprisonment, and ruined reputations. The cultural impact: lasting suspicions of alternative lifestyles, fantasy games, and youth culture also fueled censorship debates, such as Senate hearings on rock lyrics, where musicians like Dee Snider testified. Dee Snider was a member of a group called Twisted Sister. Big blonde-haired guy. And the parent group who kind of led this revolt against rock, heavy metal music, was the PMRC, Parents Music Resource Center. And they were led by wives of well-known U.S. senators, Tipper Gore, who was Al Gore's wife. Al Gore eventually became vice president. Tipper was his wife. I think they're divorced now. Susan Baker. Jim Baker was a senator. And they had Senate hearings where they brought in music producers and musicians, asking about the musical lyrics and songs played backwards kind of stuff. Yep, that was that time. And what the record industry did was, rather than fight this too much, they said, okay, we'll put explicit content stickers on albums that you think are questionable. And that seemed to satisfy the PMRC. And there was an actual trial. Another band in 1990 called Judas Priest. Have you heard of them? The parents of, I think it was a boy who committed suicide, accused Judas Priest lyrics of encouraging his suicide. Now, they were not found guilty, but it was very much in the news, as you might expect. So, parents were panicking. That's a satanic panic we're talking about. Parents were concerned. I remember these days. My kids were little. We weren't into heavy metal at all. But I remember parents were very concerned. We'd have school dances. We'd have to be careful what kind of music we played. We weren't going to play a bunch of Judas Priest and Twisted Sister and stuff like that, but you had to be careful as a school administrator. Also, the movies of the day. 1973 was the Exorcist movie. That's when I was in high school. It was a little bit before the Satanic Panic, but it's kind of the movies that got it all started. Demonic possession was the topic. I read the book first and then saw the movie many times. This was drive-in movie days for me, high school. And followed by The Omen, 1976, Gregory Peck. Supposedly his son was switched at birth with a demonic entity. Damien was his name. Scary movie, wow. And then the Amityville Horror about a demonic possession there in, I think it's in Long Island, New York. Amityville. It was based on an actual case, but I don't know if obviously demonic possession was never proven, but that was the theory of the movie. So you had rock music, heavy metal music, scary movies, and fantasy games like Dungeons and Dragons mixed with the Reagan conservative administration, who was highly supported by televangelists like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, that got all these parents all upset about Satan trying to take over the world. So it lasted about a decade or so, 80s and 90s, maybe a decade and a half, and it eventually died down as heavy metal music died off. Movies got a little less scary, and the recovered memory therapy lost credibility. I mean, it got to be where they thought these psychiatrists were putting these ideas in people's heads. This never really happened. Okay, Satanic Panic. Watch out for Satan, everybody. Have a good day. Avoid Satan, please.